Hello and welcome to Dawn English. I'm Nadia Naqi with you, and today we have with us Senator Dr. Musaddik Malik from the present government, Pakistan Muslim League Noon. And today the ruling given by the ECP that has basically found PTI guilty for foreign funding. I would like to, have Dr. Musaddik Malik's words on this, although we've seen a very fiery press conference from your end, Dr. Saab, where you were trying to draw parallel between today's ruling for Imran Khan and what happened with your leader, Nawaz Sharif. So first, your opening remarks on the ruling.
I personally think that there's been a lot of debate. Pakistan's politics has gotten enormously polarized. And we've used idioms of agency. We've said political parties in Pakistan are agents of foreign forces, foreign corporations, and so on and so forth. So the first thing that has polarized the politics of Pakistan is this entire idea that the political parties in Pakistan are foreign agents. And this is an idiom that Imran Khan Saab coined, and he's been propagating. I think the second thing that which basically is related to this is that the current government or certain parties are imported parties, as if there's one indigenous party and everyone else is imported from outside. The third argument that is being propagated is that everyone other than the walis of Riyasat Medina are all chor, are all thieves, are all corrupt, are all money launderers. And the fourth argument is this idea of Sadiq and Amin, to which is this idea of shirk, idea of all of these other things that are going on, in terms of the political narrative. These are the four things. One is the religious idiom of Sadiq and Amin, Riyasat Medina, shirk or no shirk. That's basically one idea. The idea of who is thief and who is not, the idea of who's imported and who's indigenous, and the idea of who's the agent of the outsiders. These are the four idioms that primarily PTI and Imran Khan Saab has been propagating. Now, if you take today's rulings, it has pretty much decodified each one of them. It has shown that Imran Khan's party has basically received funding from foreigners, not just individuals, but also corporations. And there are multiple names. There's this lady called Rumita Shetty, which I believe she's also tweeted about it. There is another person called Varsha Luthra, Barry Schmidt, Inderjeet Dosanjh, Lisa, Isabelletta, Charles Hayne, and so on and so forth. Charanjit Singh. And the question arises, who are these people? Pakistan's law is very clear. Absolutely clear. You cannot take funding for political activities from foreigners. Now, if these people are living in Lahore or Shahdara or Tandu Adam, I don't care about what their names are. But if these are foreigners and these people are of Indian origin or some are Indians, then the question arises, how can basically there be a political party in Pakistan which is receiving money from Indian nationals or people of Indian origin or people who grew up in India and took nationality of other countries? And if that is the case, then are they not agents of all of those people who are funding them? The second question, the important one, is that Pakistani political parties are not allowed to take money from Pakistani corporations or from international corporations, and particularly from international corporations. And in today's judgment, there's a list of 350 corporations, international corporations, corporations that reside outside of Pakistan that have funded PTI. So then the second question arises. The law says that you cannot take funding. And the reason why the law says you cannot take funding from corporations is because you then become their agents. And PTI has taken funding from 354 corporations. So that's the second problem. The third thing that the law says, and law is very clear about, is that you cannot take money from other countries or political parties in other countries or cabinet members of other countries or wholly or state-owned enterprises which are owned by some other country. Now, it has become
Exactly.
very clear from Financial Times that article, as well as from today's ruling, that $2 million were received by the cabinet member of another country in the way of funding. And who knows where else the funding has come from. So you put all of these things together. The law only forbids you to do three things. One, no foreigners. Two, no foreign corporations. Three, no other country can fund your political campaign. And PTI, it turns out, has done all three. So this is the first major argument that we propagated. And one, I gave examples, I gave names of corporations, I gave names of individuals, and the both today's judgment as well as the article, Financial Times article, very clearly
So
lays out that the money
doctor,
has been received from another country.
being a political worker yourself, with PML-N representatives being termed as agents many a times, and that's what you said briefly when you in your opening remarks, that political parties have been alleged of being agents of from either India, Israel, or other countries. Are you trying to establish and say and believe that Imran Khan, Chairman Tehreek-e-Insaf, is an agent of different countries, has been used by them, and that's the reason why he has taken funds from them? I mean, what would
Look,
he do in Pakistan?
so you have to ask a fundamental question. And the question is, why does the law not allow it? I mean, it's very clear. It's a matter of law. It's not my discretion. It's one thing to say things politically. We have not gone out and called anyone a kafir or a gaddar or basically an agent or whatever it is. That's political noise or political narrative.
Right.
We're not taking a political position. We are now taking a legal position. A judgment came out today. That was not a political narrative. 8 years, a trial took place. A trial took place for 8 years. Evidence was collected about bank accounts. There are 16 bank accounts that were not disclosed. All of these things that I've laid out are a part of today's judgment. So the fundamental question is a matter of law. The law says, in order for you to maintain your own agency in Pakistan, if you want to do politics in Pakistan, you cannot take money from a foreigner, you cannot take money from a foreign corporation, and you cannot take money from another country. And the reason why law says this is because you lose agency when you take money from these people. And PTI, it turns out, has taken money from all of these three actors: foreigners, foreign corporations, as well as foreign countries. So you tell me, if the law says that in order for you to maintain agency, you cannot take this money, and you take that money, which tantamounts to losing agency, which tantamounts to becoming an agent, I mean, in political narrative, then what we are talking about is a straightforward case of law. Today, a judgment came out after 8 years of data collection, evidence collection, verification, one committee after another. So what would you say to that? What do you think happened today?
So now the ball is in the federal government's court. Have you decided, your team, the government's legal team, decided as to how they're going to pursue this?
Yeah, I think as soon as the judgment came, it has gone to the lawyers and our legal team and our law minister and his team and Attorney General of Pakistan, and they're all going to deliberate. I mean, we can't just recklessly come out without reading the judgment and say what we are going to do. But I think from what we are hearing and what we have read, and the quick reading that I gave to the judgment before I did my press conference, it becomes amply clear what ought to be done. If this is against the law, then what is the remedy? The law also very clearly lays out what the remedy is. For prohibited funding, there is one kind of remedy. And for foreign aided funding, there's another kind of remedy. And both of those remedies are legal. So we are not taking political positions. We are saying their legal judgment, a legal judgment has come out. From that legal judgment, there are two kinds of remedies that emanate. The documentation is there in terms of taking money from another country. The documentation is there in terms of taking money from corporations, and the documentation is there in terms of taking money from foreigners. And each one of these things has a different kind of remedy. So our legal team is going to take a view on it and then take a position. Now, that's not where the buck stops. There's a bigger problem.
Okay.
And the problem is that favors have been exchanged. So 3 to 4 million pounds, or whatever the amount was, $1.2 million and 2 million pounds, whatever that turns out to be, 3.5 million pounds, they were sent from that cricket club, whatever that name was, some silly name in Oxford. Yeah. Yeah. So that money actually was collected and sent by the Abraj Group, Abraj Capital and Abraj Investments, Mr. Naqvi, Arif Naqvi's kind of company. So let's assume for a second, humor each other and think that that was a mistake. First of all, if it was a mistake, the money could have directly come from the foreign country as a mistake, or the money could have directly come from from Abraj Capital or from Mr. Arif Naqvi, because it was a mistake. But when you create a front, when you create a corporation where you give an appearance of fundraising, but actually two people give $3 million in the behind the curtain or behind the wall of that corporation, the only intent of which is to launder money, which means take money which is illegal, which is not allowed in Pakistan, give it an air of legality, and then send it to Pakistan. So that's one issue of money laundering that needs to be kind of looked into criminally. The second important thing is that, okay, well, let's assume it was money laundering. That's one kind of case that one can kind of level against PTI. But the question is, if you taking money or the parties taking money, is it giving any favors? And that has also become amply clear that there was $1 billion worth of an investment that K Electric was committed to making. And there were big fights going on. And during our time, we forced them to make some of those commitments because they purchased a monopoly.
Okay.
Sorry?
I said, as a barter
I'm sorry,
to
I
these
couldn't hear you for a second.
as a barter to these fund collection, you feel that K Electric was given to Abraj Group.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying when Abraj Group was given to K Electric, when Abraj Group was given K Electric, at that point in time, as a part of the contract, Abraj Group made contractual commitments to make investments in Karachi, in power generation in Karachi.
Absolutely.
And during our times, and they continue to kind of take extensions on them, and we forced them to make some investments. Now, there was $1 billion investment which was to be made by K Electric in Karachi for power generation. Once these £3 million were received by PTI, in one of the cabinet meetings, they were given a waiver. So that 25-year-old commitment that they would make billions of dollars worth of investments in Karachi because now they own a monopoly. $1 billion was worth of investment was waived off. They were said, we would cancel ab initio as if it never happened. You are given relief from making an investment of $1 billion in Pakistan. So the question is, you take £3 million from someone and you give him a benefit of $1 billion, which is about 250 billion rupees. Is that legal? Let me give you another example.
But Doctor, you need to, for this connection to be established in the court of law, you will have to bring out those evidences. It's very easy to say this.
That evidence is in place. Okay. There was no. This is not political. It was June of 2020. There was an ECC meeting, which was headed by, actually, the first meeting was the Cabinet Committee of Energy, which was headed by Asad Umar. That is where this decision was made, which is in the files. It's written, I think it was June of 2020. This decision was ratified by the Cabinet Committee on Energy, and subsequently it was taken to the Cabinet and Cabinet approved it. So this is not something that we have to prove. These are the documents. There's Cabinet Committee meeting minutes available, and they were circulated. The minutes are there, they're in the file. And the Cabinet Committee, when the Cabinet approved it, those minutes are in place and they're with the Cabinet. So nothing that I'm saying is hearsay. So it's not like we're saying we will find the evidence and show you. The evidence is in the file. The only evidence that we didn't have, and we continue to ponder and ask ourselves, why is this kind of relief?
was given, why the kind of relief was given. Okay,
Yeah,
so
go
Dr.
ahead.
Saab, tell me one thing. The federal government will now, as you say, that your legal team is now working
Let
on
me
the
also give you one more thing before you move on, if you don't mind.
Okay, all right, okay, sure, go ahead.
So quickly, not only this, as a part of the original contract, the federal government was supposed to give 650 megawatts of electricity to K Electric in order for the
Right.
federal government to support the people of Karachi. This
Okay.
amount was increased in 2020 from 650 megawatts to 2050 megawatts. And the amount of money, which basically means that now additional electricity worth 300 billion rupees would be given to K Electric right after PTI raises 3 million pounds. So we are concerned about two things. 300 billion rupees worth of electricity was given to them. 250 billion rupees worth of relief was given to them. So one, the criminal appropriation of how can you do this? How can you take money from someone and then give them this kind of relief? That's question number one. And the second question, which is more shameful, is that you all for 3 million pounds appropriated judges about $2 billion, and you sold that interest for 3 million pounds? Unless there's a larger amount hidden somewhere else, it's quite shameful.
So last 4 minutes that we have from you, Dr. Saab, I need to know that, do you feel that now your government is now going to be on the political side? You've been saying it because of the economic challenges that the present government faces, that we should not, there shouldn't be any political instability in the country. But with this kind of ruling, and now that the government is out, we've seen all the press conferences morning. Don't you feel that PTI is going to come out? They are having their meetings, they will respond, and it may lead to more instability. The social media, PTI supporters do not believe in this foreign funding. Their representatives have been coming out and saying it's nothing foreign. It's all overseas Pakistanis and PML-N and JUIF. That's what Chaudhry Fawad Hussain said. And he raised a question that I don't understand why these two political parties are against the overseas Pakistanis. How are you going to deal with that kind of instability?
I would ask you a very simple question. Is Varsha Luthra an expat Pakistani? Is Rumita Shetty an expat Pakistani? Is Charanjit Singh an expat Pakistani? Is Charles Haynes an expat Pakistani? Is Lisa S an expat Pakistani? Is Isabelita an expat Pakistani? So how many? There is Barry Schnepp an expat Pakistani. What are we talking about? I mean, Fawad Chaudhry says, so he says, he's a friend of mine. So he says all kinds of things, and he's saying the same kinds of things today. But are these expat Pakistanis?
Right.
So these are specific people who are listed in the judgment who are not Pakistanis. And the Ding Dong LLC, is that a Pakistani corporation? I mean, this is utter nonsense. I mean, you take money from foreign corporations, 354 of them. You take money from people with all the names that I've listed, and then you say these are expats. What, we are foolish? We stupid people? We don't know what these names mean? And if they are Pakistanis, bring the evidence forth. And if they were Pakistani, why was this evidence not presented to the Election Commission
before the ECB
in 8 years?
So Dr. Musaddik, Malik, can you say today that
And about
PML-N did
political
not take
instability,
any foreign funding? Because all political parties need to be very transparent about their fundings, right? There is a case about PML-N. There is a case before the ECB regarding People's Party on their foreign funding. How do you see that?
Look, my answer is very simple. If PML-N does this, PML-N should be punished. If People's Party does this, People's Party should be punished. This is the law of the land. I mean, what are we going to do? Have a banana republic here where no law matters, and every single time we level an allegation, you say, well, what about something else happening somewhere else? So if there is any criminal appropriation to PML-N, we'll face that. And if we've done something wrong, we'll have to face the consequences. It's as simple as that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Musaddik Malik, for joining us today. And as Senator Dr. Musaddik Malik says, that the government's legal team is actually deliberating on the ruling given by ECP, which has found PTI guilty of taking foreign funds. And they're going to move accordingly on different aspects that he discussed today on DawnNews English. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.